Hello there, my name is Kirsten. About 15 years ago, I got my wife on Pimp My Ride. That's her thing right behind us. We still have it. And I've noticed that a lot of people put information up about Pimp My Ride, especially in the last year or so on YouTube. And it seems to get more and more convoluted as time goes on. And I wanted to give perspective from people who actually experienced it. So in other words,
now it's my turn.
So I wanted to talk about 10 misconceptions about Pimp My Ride for this first video. So there's a lot of people that say the show is fake. It wasn't fake. It was set up quite a bit. It was staged quite a bit. But if you use common sense in regards to how they did it, and if you look at it from the producer's point of view, some of the things kind of click in and make sense. We're from San Diego. We're still down in San Diego. And the shop that did our car was Gas. Aaron had the second car done by Gas. And obviously Exhibit actually took the cars and drove them to the shop. In case of him driving, he's not going to drive 2 hours from San Diego to LA in traffic with someone's car that may or may not be reliable or even safe. So logistically, that's why they staged houses and stuff like that. And you needed to look at it from that perspective in terms of legality for Southern California on what parts and modifications would be legal to keep as opposed to just looking cool for the show. Okay, so after multiple attempts, apparently I don't have a decent video editing program. I was going to try and show you a clip show and then talk over it, but I don't have an audio or video program, and I've been putting this off for 3 weeks, so I'm just going to redo this part. And yeah, so anyways, in terms of the homes were rented. They were all up near, I think all of them. They were within a mile or two of the shops. Exhibit did actually take the cars and drive them away, with the exception of a few that were too broken down. And then they made it look like he did. And he would actually drive the cars to the shops and everything else. Obviously, we're from San Diego. Exhibit's not going to drive 2 hours in traffic and everything else. So one thing that a lot of people point out, they try and say that Pimp My Ride's fake because when the contestants come to the door, it's always the contestants that answer the door, and then that they're always mic'd up and they're jumping around and they're so happy to see him and everything else. What Aaron was told, and I believe pretty much everybody got a variation of this, was that she was one of 3 contestants and they were all currently at different homes with their cars doing their little film parts, and then one of them would be chosen. And so they were put into the house and they were told to wait there until someone came and knocked at the door. They were to go answer the door. If it was Exhibit, they won. If it was the producer or a sponsor from Pep Boys or something like that with a gift basket, then they got the consolation prize, then they went home. I don't believe that MTV would have gone to the expense of actually doing that. Pimp My Ride Brazil, they did do something like that, but they would invite all 3 people to a park and then kind of do that, but I'll go into that later. But one thing that's kind of fun, Erin pointed out to me, she goes, they put black construction paper over every single one of the windows. She goes, I couldn't see anything out. As us as the friends, we got to wait in the backyard. So we had to sit in the backyard and just wait. We had no idea what was going on. And Aaron was in the house with the MTV people. They were keeping her away from any windows and everything else. And if you look at the episodes, there's a lot of the episodes that have black construction paper and such over the windows, or all the shades are drawn, or it kind of seems like they look for the houses that did not have a visible window aiming to the front of the house. So I think that was a pretty common thing that they did. So Exhibit was the host of the show. He had nothing to do with the choices, nothing to do with payment or anything else. He was just the host of the show and there for comedic relief. The show has been over for almost 15 years at this point. So you can quit asking him to pimp your ride, because it isn't going to happen. He just did an interview recently and talked about it. And then one other thing was there was only 5 seasons. There was a strict age limit of 22 years old. For the 5th season, which is the final season, they raised the age limit to 27. And that was when I was young enough to attempt to take my other car, or my car, up there. And I did not get picked. So a lot of people say that they made the car look worse for the show. For our experience, I don't believe that happened. I kind of made it look worse before we contacted MTV, because we were going to look into getting it painted up. My father used to have an auto body shop, and so he knows how to paint cars. And so I had talked to him about fixing her car up and helping me to paint it and everything else. And he had said the paint was flaking off and everything else. He said, go ahead and get a pressure washer, pressure wash the car, see what comes off, and then see if we could do anything about her off-road achievement, which she talks about on the show, which was right there on that side panel. And I was able to grind that off and try and pull some of it out, so it wasn't quite so bad for MTV. But when I contacted them, and it was shortly after we had chosen to do that, and I told her, hey, I said, what do you think? Should we sign you up for Pimp My Ride? She goes, hey, I'm game. And so we contacted them, and they actually called her the very next day, early in the morning. So it wasn't even, I don't think 12 hours had passed. So when they called Erin, she had come up to see me and my mom at our work and have lunch with us. And literally after we clocked out and were walking out, they gave Erin a phone call. And so she talked to them and everything else, and they said, hey, you know, we've been looking for a Volkswagen thing to do for nonstop, but it's normally owned by older people, and there's a strict age limit of 22. She was only 21. So she fit under that criteria, and they just said, yeah, you know, we really want to do a thing. We really want to do a thing. But they had said, they're like, well, here's the only thing that we want to bring to your attention. They said, this isn't fix your car. This is Pimp My Ride. And they said, we're not overhauling. And they said, so just so you know, you've got a classic car. If that is your intention, is to get it fully rebuilt. And they said, we don't do that. We pimp your ride. We clean it up, and we make it look nice, but we're not going to fully restore it. And that's one thing that's been a big misunderstanding, is that Pimp My Ride didn't do a great job. And the difference between like Pimp My Ride and Overhauling took the car down to the bare frame, fixed it, powder coated it and everything else, and then rebuilt it, and they made the strict timeline of 1 week. And Pimp My Ride, I don't believe, ever said, oh my gosh, we've got to get it done in a week. And they make it look like they're moving really, really fast. But in reality, they weren't. So, and when it came to the engines, West Coast Customs, I believe, did pretty much 2 engines. And correct me if I'm wrong, because I don't have all the episodes on DVD to watch. In I think it was season 2 Ender, it was a CRX, and it actually broke down on exhibit on the way to the shop, and they pulled out the engine and they rebuilt it. And then one of the last cars they did was a green Chevelle, and they actually put a crate engine in it. Gas, on the other hand, Gas did quite a few engine swaps, and usually when they did it, they were not stock replacements. They were full tilt rebuilds or performance engines. Erin ended up getting a 200 horsepower turbo racing engine from CB Performance put in, and in place of her, I think it's around 50 horsepower is what it gets stock. But they did not do every car, and there's reasons behind that. In the state of California, we have our smog laws, and now I've seen recently that 75 somehow got included, but for what's been going for a long time is 1974 and older do not have to smog. They finally moved it from 73 to 74, only like 8 to 10 years ago, because when Erin actually bought the car, she wanted a 73 instead of a 74 because she still had to smog a 74. But in terms of that, for the legal liability of trying to give someone a car that you can't register properly because you can't smog it properly and everything else, would have been way too much of a financial liability and overall pain in the butt. And that's why you see in people's cars like Seth's Maxima and stuff like that, they didn't give them a racing engine, and most of the time they didn't even touch the engine parts. Also another reason that I think West Coast really didn't do it, West Coast is a tuning shop, whereas Gas has the backing of all of the local dealerships that are all under the Galpin umbrella. So they have the ability to sequester mechanics and parts from the various dealerships that they have up there. One other thing a lot of people talk about is the taking away of parts. For Erin and the Thing, we really didn't experience any of that. There was actually some extra parts that they kind of put in that they didn't even bother to mention on the show, which, hey, we were cool with. So one thing that we did see on the show was Erin got a light up chrome Momo shift knob, which is this. And that's featured on the show and shown in the episode, and it has a black flashing blue LED that strobes and everything else. When we went up to get the car, they had an issue, and we ended up having to leave and then come back a little over a month later. Something happened and the transmission basically fell apart. They couldn't get it to shift out of second gear. So we waited and waited, and they said, well, we're having issues with it. You might not be able to take it home. We're going to change the transmission fluid. And they came back and said, we opened up to change the transmission fluid, and mud and chunks started rolling out. So your transmission's done. We can't give you back a broken car because we took a driving car. So we'll get you a transmission. And they said, it's not going to be a racing one. It's not going to be a perfect brand new one, but we're going to get you rolling and good. We're not exactly sure what kind of transmission they've put in, but I'll look into that. And then one thing that they did with swapping it is they ended up taking her stock shifter out, and they put in a short throw shifter that just had this ugly ball screwed onto the top. And Erin was like, well, where's my pretty shift knob? And they said, it doesn't work with the new short throw shifter, but we gave you a short throw shifter and a new transmission, so, you know, compensation. And so it's been a long time, but about eight or 9 months ago, I was actually able to locate the exact shift knob. I bought her one, and I bought one for my Neon. I haven't been able to find the batteries yet. That's why it's not blinking blue for you. But I found out that it, in fact, will not work with the short throw shifter without being modified. So I'm going to have to take this cap piece right here and open it up, which I will do in another video, and then get it put back in. And then, yeah, everything else, we didn't experience them taking anything off of the car for our car. I know that they did take some things off of other people's cars. And as far as I understand, it was mostly for liability's sake. They took the flamethrower off of Mary's Mustang. They took the paintball gun out of the guy's Impreza. They ended up taking the vroom box back out of Layla's pink and purple minivan. And I believe that was because that was just a featured prototype that they were trying to get featured on the show so they could get some business. But that was never intended to be given to her, and they did take that out. So I know a lot of people talk about the things that they took away from the car. Sometimes they added things to the car and really didn't mention them. One of them for us was they put a large GPS that I'll put up on the screen, but you can see it's mounted on the passenger side of the car. And Erin was very psyched when she got home from doing the filming for the reveal. She's like, oh, we wanted a GPS, and they put this huge GPS in there, and it's huge. And this was back in the days where, you know, people had a TomTom, and it was, you know, the size of your hand. And so she was super psyched. And then we got to go and speak to Mad Mike about all the different things that they added to the car and everything else. And he's a really nice guy. And when it came to that, he goes, okay, he goes, Erin, he goes, you seemed kind of psyched about this. He's like, so I'm sure you want to know the lowdown on how this works and what you should do with it. And she goes, absolutely. He goes, all right, so listen close. What you want to do when you get home, he goes, take this out of your car. He goes, do you guys own a boat? And we're like, no. And he goes, okay, then put it on eBay and sell it. He's like, because it's a GPS for waterways. And Erin's like, what? And he goes, it's got a sonar fish finder and everything. And he goes, it's for a boat. He goes, it's a GPS for waterways. It will not work in your car. He goes, we got it to work. He's like, because we just had it laying around. He's like, well, we put it in and got it to work. He's like, but it'll never work to direct you where to go. He's like, so take it out and sell it. So we did. So thanks, Mike. So a lot of people say that the show is fake because of the acting. They say, oh, the acting is really bad. Well, yeah. Reality TV is pretty much the producer's reality, because if it was actual reality, it wouldn't need a producer. So we had to take a lot of takes over and over and over and over and over and over again. And that was pretty much what's expected of any reality show. So if you're ever going to go on a reality show, expect to take multiple takes. So there seems to be a lot of disinformation on and misconception and confusion on how many seasons the show had. The show had 5 seasons. If you look on Amazon, Amazon has it listed correctly. Wikipedia does not. Wikipedia shows 6 seasons. Amazon shows 5. We have a tape of Erin's episode that MTV gave us, and it says right on it, season 4, episode 2. For some reason, during what they say is season 3 and 4 are both West Coast Customs. There are only 8 episodes each. In the middle of it, Q leaves West Coast Customs and Ryan takes over. And for some reason, it gets kind of split and shifted as if it's different seasons. But I have the tape. We have the tape from MTV that says we're season 4, episode 2. And then Amazon has us all listed correctly. So I think that's just a little bit of a misconception that someone kind of shoved in there. The show did only go for, I believe, 4 years. And I think when they switched from West Coast Customs to gas, they kind of jammed it into the same year, because everyone goes seasons and they think 1 full year. But I think they kind of doubled up on the show and had a lot more in 1 year to compensate. And the last thing I want to talk for this video is Taverish on YouTube just recently found and acquired Layla's pink and purple Dodge Caravan that was done by gas in the last season. I had been watching it, but I don't have the money or the space for a Caravan. So, and it was for sale in Rhode Island. It's been for sale for a few years. It was in a mechanic's lot. I'm not sure of the details of how he got it. But basically it was sitting in an impound lot on different colored rims. The nice rims that they did for her were inside of the car, and it was sitting on different rims. And he ended up getting it. He took it to Florida where he lives. He took the body kit off, and it was very beat up. Took the body kit off, got it all fixed back up and put back together. And he did a wonderful job. Good job, Taverish. But one thing he exclaimed was that apparently he believed it was common practice for a Pimp My Ride to swap out vehicles with similar looking ones with less damage. I don't believe that's the case. I know 100% that this is the same car that Erin had before. Things are not massively plentiful, and most of them are all kind of beat up. Hers was. But I know with Layla's minivan, she had a 98 Plymouth Expresso, and then they ended up swapping it for a '99 Dodge Caravan. They didn't make a big stink about it on the show. They did try and kind of conceal it and hide it, but everyone was kind of thrown off because it's like, well, why did it go from a Plymouth grill to a Dodge grill? With that being done, West Coast Customs, as I mentioned earlier, is a tuning shop. They're a single standalone shop and everything else. Now they're quite a bit bigger, but they're not a dealership and everything else. Whereas Galpin Gas is part of the Galpin Auto Group, and going up there, they have block after block after block after block of dealerships there. So at the point of when they did Layla's minivan, it was only about 7 years. It's about the time where most people go and turn vehicles in. So I'm thinking Layla's van was pretty trashed. The door was falling off and everything else. I'm thinking that more than likely, with Gas having the availability of multiple dealerships with trade-in options, that someone just happened to bring in a Dodge Caravan that was green, that had a lot less miles, and it was in pretty decent shape. And so it made a good business decision to just go ahead and grab that trade-in and swap it out for her van. But I don't believe that they did that for anyone else's vehicle for the whole show. And I've never seen any proof or anything like that. I knew they did that for her car. And then one thing that is noticeable in Tavrish's video, when he gets it, he goes, wow, this is really rough. It's really beat up. It's really trashed and this, and it's really dirty. He ended up getting it all cleaned up and kind of fixing and putting everything back together, and was kind of amazed that it all worked. In my experience, I thought Gas did a wonderful job. I don't know the people at West Coast Customs, and I've never seen their work, so I can't vouch for them or say anything bad about them in any way, shape, or form. But I know Gas has a new show called Driven, and it's got Bo Buckman and Mad Mike from Pimp My Ride in it, and they do fantastic stuff. They do really high dollar stuff and everything else. I don't know how much of the bill was being footed by MTV versus the tuning shops. I know that MTV was calling a lot of shots on kind of the silly antics and everything like that. And so I know Tavrish was kind of shocked that he's like, he goes, as much as it's kind of silly and everything else, he goes, everything works. He did mention that the audio and the video screens were not hooked up properly, and he was able to kind of pop them loose and fiddle with the wiring and everything else and get them wired up. He never did show the audio system working, but he did mention something about it. But I'm wondering if he just didn't have any music that he could play and didn't want to have a copyright strike issue. I don't know. I'd be very interested to know. That van he gave to Hoovy, Hoovy's Garage on YouTube. Hoovy has a bunch of cars and does a lot of videos. Hoovy decided that he couldn't really use it, but he thinks that it was pretty and it deserved to be viewed by the public. So he took it over to, I'm trying to remember the name. He took it to a car collection. I think it's Midwest Dream Car Collection in Manhattan, Kansas. And so it should be available for viewing. And one of these days when I head out there, I'm going to check it out. So thank you for listening to my ramblings. I've been trying to kind of cobble something together like this for 2 years now. It's been an idea that's been rattling around in my head for like 10 years. So thanks for sitting and listening to me ramble. And if there's any questions you have or anything, I would like to do some more videos. Currently the car is not running. It's been parked for about 5 years now. The fuel line needs to be replaced for its third or fourth time. It's just a rubber hose. This time I'm going to do steel and run that back. We didn't just take the car and upkeep it. We kept working on it, and I'll go over all the modifications that we've done, and it's extensive and it's a lot. But we really appreciate the job that Gas did. Pimp My Ride was a very good experience. We both had a great time with it. And I can't say anything really horribly bad. I think some of the cars got done a whole lot better than some of the others. It just depended on the focus and how much their budget was and everything else at the time. But I think Aaron's car, I think they really went above and beyond. We've met a couple people at the Buggerama up in Irvine when we've taken it there, and people come up to me and go, "Oh, are you with this car?" Yeah. And they go, "Oh, so the girl who got it done sold it, huh? Oh, that's typical." And I said, "No, that's my girlfriend." And they go, "Oh, she kept it? She kept it?" I said, "Yeah, she kept it." I said, she's right there." They're like, "Oh my God, that's so cool. Hey, this, and I got called in by Galpin, and I worked on this on it, and this on it, and this on it." And we talked to a few different people over the years, and they had said that pretty much all three of them had said that her car was among the top 10, if not the top 5 that they did for the show. So that's kind of awesome. So anyways, I'm going to be doing more of these videos eventually as time goes on. Hope everyone's doing well with quarantine, and hope everyone had a great Easter. I'm sitting out here and I'm getting ready to go to bed. So have a good night. Talk to you later. Bye.